I'm slightly larger now, but somewhere in there he's buried away. I mean, every bit of him is still in there, because I think that's the thing that's so marvelous about childhood, is that it is every bit of experience you have is formative, and it sticks with you, and all the things that you later become are really outgrowths of things that happened to you in those first few important years of your life. You know, in the 50s, it was a period of heroes of all kinds in comic books and television and movies. There were superheroes like Superman, and then there were more. Nope.
I'm terribly sorry. I thought the bloody thing was off.
It's not a problem for me.
Can I get you to shift a little bit of an angle this way? Because the angle of the sun has changed.
Oh, okay.
Reflection.
Of course. So do you want me to start that one again?
Would you mind? Because the light was gradually starting to brighten on his glasses.
Okay, we'll start from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about the persona of the Thunderbolt Kid?
Of course I can. The 50s was an era of great heroes in comic books and movies and television and books. And, you know, there were superheroes like Superman, but there were also a lot of more mortal heroes like Roy Rogers and Sky King and Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, but they were all heroic figures. And like most kids of that age, I took my influences sort of from wherever I could. And so I would very often, you know, have on a Superman cape, but also maybe carrying a Zorro sword and wearing Roy Rogers cowboy boots and hat. But the one object that was kind of the foundation garment for all my superpowers was this old jersey that I found hanging behind the furnace in the basement. Nobody knew where it came from. It had obviously been left there by previous owners of the house. But it was evidently some kind of old sporting jersey, probably from some small Iowa college. It was very heavy duty, so it was clearly intended for cold weather wear. So the presumption was that it was either for ice hockey or an old football team. And it had a small, really quite small, Thunderbolt in a satin-like material sewn onto the chest. And because of the Thunderbolt and because of the fineness of the material of the sweater, I just took it into my head that this was the actual garment that you needed in order to have superpowers. And so I wore that whenever I was being a superhero, and then put other stuff on with it. So, you know, with the Superman cape and the Zorro sword and so on went alongside with it. But the sweater was the thing I absolutely had to have. And it was my father, when I was clomping around the house with all this stuff on, who dubbed me the Thunderbolt Kid. And it was a name he used affectionately for me throughout my childhood. But the Thunderbolt Kid had, like all superheroes, he had certain supernatural powers, and the two in particular that I especially cultivated were X-ray vision, which all little boys want to have X-ray vision for all kinds of reasons, shall we say, and the other one was a sort of laser vision, an ability to vaporize objects that were either in my way or people that irked me in some way. So those were my two main powers. But I think I could also imagine that I could fly and walk upside down on ceilings and do lots of other things. It is certainly my fondest hope to do a book on Canada. Not just because I want to, you know, write about Canada. I mean, I never really wanted to actually do the work of writing a book at all, if I could help it. But going, you know, but when you commit to doing a book, it's a big investment of time, and so you want to do something that you think will be pretty confident will engage you long enough to keep your interest going in it. And Canada is certainly one of those places because it's so big, it's such a big kind of panorama of a country to take on, and there's so much of it I haven't seen. I really have only seen a few of the cities, and mostly those on very circumscribed visits, like on book tours. And, you know, so there's a whole bunch of it that I would just love to have a look at. But there's also, Canada's always been a kind of vast, sprawling mystery to me. And, I mean, I'm sort of fascinated with how it is different from the States, because in so many ways it's so similar. And yet, you know, when you come here, when you step over the border, you as an American, you instantly know you're not in the United States anymore. There's something clearly but sort of ineffably different here. That there's you know you're in a different country. You haven't just moved into another state, and exploring what it is that makes you different, and how you actually cultivate that here. I mean, how you overcome the fact that just underneath you is this, this behemoth of a kind of cultural power that everything it produces sort of overtakes the world, and here you are right next door to it, with kind of in its immediate fallout. So how do you maintain a separateness up here of identity with the United States right next door? I think, and I don't know the answer to that offhand, but I'd love to come back and find out. And I'm not sure that many Canadians really know the answer to that. I think it's something that's done more on instinct than kind of rational thought.